What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to another subscriber for showing love to the channel. Much respect to the brother Giovanni Giles for the donation to the channel via the PayPal. Much respect to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV, aka Too Raw for Sports, once again. So, I'm gonna say something in this video that I know some people aren't going to agree with, because it's just been said so many times that it's become like a fact. And even when it was a brief period of time that I was accepting it, I still had my doubts, like, am I shortchanging this other guy? Over the last few years, I've come to the realization that I just don't think Dwayne Wade is better than Jerry West. I just don't think he was a better player. I don't think he was a more dominant player. I just don't see it. Most people do. I don't. I get it. When it comes to Wade versus West, I know what people are going to say. Oh, Jerry didn't play against the best competition. They look at old footage of Jerry West, and Wade was more spectacular. He had better handles and more athletic and more exciting highlights. At the end of the day, you could argue, hell, Pete Maravich had better handles than Larry Bird, right? More exciting to watch. He was more box office, more showtime. But would anybody rank Pete Maravich ahead of Larry Bird? No. Right? Jason Williams, right, was more exciting to watch than John Stockton. Who would you rank ahead of the other? Now, I know there's some extreme examples, maybe not the best comparison, but I just think that when the evidence is put together, that Dwayne Wade, as great as he was, I don't think that he was better than Jerry West. I think Jerry West had I think he had arguably a slightly longer prime, despite having played the game 40, maybe even close to 50 years earlier. I think he was more dominant in his playoff, especially his playoff runs. And just overall, statistically, I think he was just a more dominant player than Dwayne Wade. I mean, okay, let's just go through this. Let's look at the resume. Now, this is where Wade has an advantage. He's a 3-time NBA champion. Jerry West only won one championship. Only won one. Now, how many NBA finals did Dwayne Wade go to? Well, if I'm not mistaken, he went to 5 NBA finals. 2006, 2011, 12, 13, and 14. So that's 5. West went to 9. So I know people are like, wow, man, he only won 8. He only won 1 out of 8 NBA finals. Well, to be fair, the teams that beat him were all-time great teams. The Boston Celtics, anchored by the greatest defensive center the game has ever seen in Bill Russell, and the New York Knicks of the early 1970s, where all 5 members of the starting lineup are in the Hall of Fame. The late Willis Reed, the late Dave DeBusschere, Bill Bradley, and the greatest backcourt of the time, one of the greatest dynamic duos, Walt Clyde Frazier, first ballot Hall of Famer, Earl the Pearl Monroe, first ballot Hall of Famer, and then the 73 Knicks, they also had Jerry Lucas, first ballot Hall of Famer, and a guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, I believe Dick Barnett was on that team. So it's not like he was losing to a team like, say, the Mavericks that really only had one great star in Dirk Nowitzki. They weren't losing to, matter of fact, they played Dallas twice in the finals. And Dirk was the only real Hall of Fame talent on that team. Not to say they didn't have other great players, really good players, I should say, but the talent level that Jerry West was going up against every year, despite these narratives that, there was no players, that's bull. Because there were fewer teams. So, yeah, you would think, there's fewer teams, so the Lakers have a better shot at getting to the finals. Yeah, they did, because they had Jerry West and Baylor. But they just couldn't overcome the superior talent of the Celtics and then later on the Knicks. Until Wilt Chamberlain came along. And then even then, they were consistently get to the finals. But by that time, West and Chamberlain and Baylor were past their primes. But they still were able to win a championship under the coaching of the great Bill Sharman, who, guess what, is a former Celtic. NBA Finals MVP. Wade, 2006. Jerry West, 1969. But of course, it didn't come when he won a championship. It came from an epic performance where in that 1969 finals, I believe Wade had, was it 3 40-point games and a 39-point game? And I think in game 1 he had 53. So that means in those other 2 championships, Wade wasn't even the best player on the team. Whereas in most of those other finals, except for the latter ones, you could argue Wilt Chamberlain, when he won Finals MVP in 1972, maybe a couple other finals, but most of those finals, it was either Baylor being the best player, but from 64 onward, usually it was Jerry West. Dwayne Wade, 13-time NBA All-Star. Jerry West, 14-time NBA All-Star. Wade, NBA All-Star Game MVP 2010. Jerry West, NBA All-Star Game MVP 1972. Dwayne Wade, 2-time All-NBA First Team. Jerry West, 10 times All-NBA First Team. Wade, 3 times All-NBA Second Team. West, 2 times All-NBA Second Team. Wade, 3 times All-NBA Third Team. West was never All Third Team. Matter of fact, I don't know if they even had that back then. Wade, 3 times NBA All-Defensive Second Team. West, 4 times NBA All-Defensive First Team. And NBA All-Defensive Second Team 1969. Now, what makes this interesting is that the defensive team wasn't added until 1968-69, which wasn't until, what was that, the 9th season of Jerry West's career? So how many of these teams would he have been on had this award existed for all of his career? 7, 8, 9? More than likely it would have been a record 11, 12, and then we're talking a whole different narrative. I'm going to tell you another thing, too. Even though steals were not counted when Jerry West played, more than likely, he would have led the NBA in steals, just from the way he played basketball and the speed of the game. More than likely, he would have led the NBA in steals for several years, something Wade never accomplished. I don't know how many years because we don't have the numbers, but probably several seasons. At least 5 or 6 times he probably led the NBA in steals. How many? We don't know. But I do know that last year that he played, I think it was in 32 games, he averaged 2.6 steals. That was an older, slower West. So it stands to reason that the faster paced NBA in the 1960s, early 1970s, And yes, the pace of the game was faster. There's this nonsense that goes around that says that the pace of the game today is too fast. That's bull. The game was at its apex in speed during the early to mid 1960s, throughout the 1960s, even into the early 1970s. They had 120, 130 possessions in some games, which was 40 more possessions than what we saw, say, during the 2000s. That's why the rebounding totals were so high. That's why the scoring was so high despite the lack of a three-point shot. So it stands to reason with all these extra possessions. That's why there were so many more blocks. That's why there were so many more steals. But we don't know these numbers. But like I said, it stands to reason that Jerry West probably had some seasons where he averaged over 4 steals per game. And I think that's a conversation that needs to be brought up more by NBA historians. So let's look at scoring titles. Wade had one, 2009. Jerry West, 1970. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure if Jerry West would have led the NBA in scoring that year had Wilt Chamberlain not gotten hurt. Because that particular year, when Wilt got hurt, I think it was through 6 games. I think it was 6 games. He was averaging 32 points a game. Because the strategy for that season was for Wilt to be the number one scoring option. But I don't know if they would have kept it that way. So I just threw that in there to be fair. Assists. Wade never led the NBA in assists. Jerry West did, 1971-72. Wade is on the 75th anniversary team. Jerry West is on the 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary teams. Wade's number 3 is retired by the Miami Heat. West is number retired by the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm going to skip college accolades, but Wade scored 23,165 points. West, 25,192. Wade averaged 22 points per game in his career. West, without a three-point line, 27 points per game. Wade grabbed 4,933 rebounds. West, 5,366. Wade averaged 4.7 rebounds. West averaged 5.8 rebounds. Wade dished out 5,701 assists. Wade Wade had 5,701 assists. West 6,238. Wade 5.4 assists per game. West 6.7 assists per game. So let's look at something else. Let's look at playoff numbers. So, when you look at playoff numbers, so you look at Wade's career, his playoff career, he averaged 22.3 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.9 assists, 1.5 steals, 1 block per game, on 47.4% shooting from the floor, 33.8% shooting from three-point range, and 78% from the foul line. He led the playoffs in scoring just once, which was 2010. I believe that's the year that they lost in the first round to the Boston Celtics, and that was just mere months before LeBron would join them in free agency. That's the year when he averaged in 5 games 33.2 points per game. I think in one of those games he had 46 or something like that. I remember that. It was one of them games. I think it was the only game that they won. I remember him looking at his hand or some crap like that when he hit like a game-winning 3, or I think it was a 3. Let's look at Jerry West's playoff numbers. All right. 29.1 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 6.3 assists. Steals and blocks were not counted, but I'm just gonna make this assumption. Wade is statistically the greatest, or maybe next to Jordan, it depends how you look at it, they're the two top shot blocking shooting guards in history of the NBA. So I'm not going to say that West was on his level as far as shot blocking. But steals, it stands to reason that, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I'm just going to guess it was either close to 3 a game or over 3 a game, but I don't know. It didn't count defensive rebounds or offensive rebounds for much of that years of his career. So anyway, 46.9% shooting from the floor. There was no three-point shot. West shot 80.5% from the charity stripe. West led the playoffs in scoring 4 times: 1965, 1966, 1968, and 1969. 40.6 points per game in 65, 66 34.2%, 68 34.2 points per game, 68 30.8 points per game, 1969 30.9 points per game. Matter of fact, there was 3 other years we averaged over 30. 1970 31.2 points per game, 62 31.5, 1964 31.2 points per game. And Jerry West also owns the record for the highest scoring average ever in a playoff series. I think, I'm going off of memory here, someone can correct me, I think it was the 1965 divisional series against the then Baltimore Bullets. I think he averaged 46.3 points per game in that series. 46.3. Michael Jordan is second with a 45.2 scoring average against the, I think it was the Cavaliers in the 88 opening round series. So, in a nutshell, offensively, Jerry West was the more dominant scorer. He was a better shooter. Theoretically, he would have been a better three-point shooter, but we can't definitively prove that. But I tend to think that he was. He was a better. Wade was a great mid-range shooter, but Jerry West had one of the greatest jump shots the game has ever seen. Jerry West was a better free throw shooter. Wade was a better shot blocker. Defensively, though, Jerry West's reputation was of the fact that he was a hard-nosed, great defender. So, technically speaking, he was considered a better, more dominant defender than Dwayne Wade. Better rebounder. And look, man, I'm sorry. As much as we always want to downplay LeBron for like playing on super teams, we got to keep that same energy for Wade. Okay, we got to keep that same energy for Wade because he benefited also from playing with LeBron James. He wouldn't have won those 2 additional championships if LeBron didn't join him in South Beach. So at the end of the day, we got to be fair with this, right? So, better rebounder, better defensive player, better free throw shooter. As good as Wade was mid-range, Wade was a very good mid-range shooter, but West was even better. West was a much better deep-range shooter, even though there was no three-point line. Far more dominant in the playoffs, better in the regular season. Look, as far as MVP awards, neither one of them got an MVP award, but Jerry West was playing in an era where you had guys like Bob Pettit, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson. It's pretty damn hard to win an MVP award when those guys were playing. You got one guy that's on a team that wins it every fucking year. Another guy who's putting up 45, 50 points and 30 rebounds every other night. Then another guy that's averaging triple-doubles, even if they're not winning a lot. Yeah, you're putting up 35 or 30 a night, but you're going up against some stiff competition for that award. But there's no doubt that during Jerry West's prime, he was the best shooting guard in the NBA. I would say if he averaged 20-something points, 23, 22 points, whatever he averaged during his first year in the NBA, I can't remember off the top of my head, 20, but from his second year onward, I think Jerry West until 1972 or so. Off the top of my head, I would say he was the best shooting guard in the NBA for about a decade. You can't really say Wade was ever the best shooting guard. Kobe was better than him. Now, Kobe is better than both of them. His resume is better than both of them. But to me, Jerry West was better than Dwayne Wade. I'm sorry. He was better. Not to mention the fact that, look, man, Wade is taking some. My estimation of Dwayne Wade as a man has fucking plummeted over the last decade or so. That shouldn't factor into basketball, but goddamn it, that's a little bit of a factor to me as well. So anyway, that's all I got to say on this one, man. Tell me what you guys think.